All right. Hey, guess what? Good evening. I'm here with you as always. I'm always here with you. Even when I'm not here with you, you guys know how to find me as well. But it's Friday, and I want to say, thank God it's Friday. And we have we have two guests going to be on with us this evening. They're no strangers to you guys, albeit one was in absentia, meaning that he was absent for a while. I don't know for what reason. He wasn't banned from Straight Up. He wasn't banned from 107.1 FM, but he went into hiding for God in heaven knows what. So do share the link. Share the link, and we'll be back with our guest, Ganesh. Ganesh, yes, Ganesh Mahipaul, suspended member of parliament. Ganesh Mahipaul is with us this evening. Member of parliament, he's suspended. Don't know how he's being paid. Don't know how he's buying sugar. Don't know how he's buying rice. Don't know how he's surviving. But he's looking healthier than almost everybody that I know in Guyana. We'll find out about that, his suspension. We'll find about the politics on the ground. We'll find out about lots of things. So share the link. You know, we ask you once and that's it. Share the link. Ganesh Mahipaul is with us this evening. And we have also, for a few minutes, we will be having attorney at law, Shellon Washington. You know, I like to ask and pick her brain as to what's happening in Guyana from a legal standpoint. And you know, she's always here with us and for us. So Ganesh Mahipaul and Shellon Washington. But look at this letter. This letter was by former Minister of Foreign Affairs. He just passed away as of yesterday, Mr. Rashley Jackson, OR. Rashley Jackson, former Minister of Foreign Affairs. He was a bunch of other things under the PNC. He served Guyana with distinction. And so we've just got to salute. We've just got to salute this son of the soil. We've got to salute the son of the soil. And just prior to his death, not so long ago, he responded to a letter that this guy, Freddie, you know, like every time you go in the back dam and there's always some fly or some mosquito, no matter how much you hit that, and you swear to God that you hit that mosquito or that fly, but they come right back at you over your food. Zzz, annoying fly. A mosquito, but it's probably worse than that. You know, those palm flies or whatever you call it, those flies that hang around like chicken hawk and dead cows and so forth. Yeah. But anyways, back to what I'm trying to say to you, right? You know, sometimes I get a bit carried away. Do forgive me, guys. But Mr. Rashley Jackson responded to Freddie Kissoon and laid everything to rest. And this is where we observed an intellectual giant against a midget, intellectual midget. And of course, Freddie being the intellectual, quote unquote, intellectual midget. And this is what Rashley Jackson, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, now deceased. Again, condolences to his family. But let us go to what he said about with Bert music and Julio Iglesias. You know, Freddie loves to talk about his dog. He's the only one that walks a dog. And Freddie probably not accustomed to dog. Well, you know what I mean, four-legged dogs. But maybe he's accustomed to dogs in his life. But he finally has a dog, and he's walking this dog. And this is where Rashley Jackson actually confronted Freddie and said, I do occasionally, occasionally, you read Freddie's article, occasionally, and there are three things, his connection with, he's talking about Freddie's connection with his dog, not by the leash, right? His attachment to music, Bert, Julio, and the unique style of his analysis. Unique style, actually, you know, this diplomat didn't really want to say much more in describing it, but just use the word unique, right? So this is interesting because Rashley Jackson said, one day, while reflecting on his fulminations, an image of three gods of Greek mythology crossed my mind. Eros, the god of love, Apollo, the god of music, and Kolimos, the god of stupidity and foolishness. So there we go. The latter kind of fits Freddie right where he deserves, right there. Anyways, good evening to you. I am not a god, but if you want to call me the god of talk show in Guyana and the Caribbean, I'll accept that without being blaspheming anybody. The god of talk show, here I am, Mark Benschop, and I'll have one of my deputy, Ganesh Mahipaul. He's nobody's deputy, man. You know, Ganesh goes into a political ring and he battles, whether he's in the mud. Look, one thing I like about Ganesh, other than the fact that he's gone quiet these days with us here on 107 Point, we'll ask him about that. I'm actually upset, and I'll talk to him about that. But he goes into the ring. This guy Ganesh doesn't care where he goes, where he is, whether he's hungry, whether he's not hungry, or whatever. He goes into the ring. He goes into, I'm talking about a real boxing ring, mind you. He goes into the ring. He uses a parachute. He goes in the mud. He goes in the cane field. He goes in the box. He doesn't care where he is, and he will battle you. And that's what I like about, that is what I like about Ganesh Mahipal. He comes on here and he grabs ownership of the station. He grabs ownership of everything. This guy, I wouldn't say that he's a political bully, but he's strong. And this is the sort of politician that we need. And I just hope that Ganesh will continue to be encouraged. We want more of Ganesh. Continue to be encouraged and not be turned off. Because sometimes, you know, people do get turned off. Look, share the link and let's get ready to rock and roll with Ganesh Mahipal. He is with us. I'm told by our operator that he's in a backstage. He's putting on his makeup. I don't know how much makeup can do to him, but he's putting that on. Here we go. Ganesh Mahipal, my good friend and honorable member of parliament. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, and thank you very much for having me on your program once again. And I want to start off, first of all, by extending condolences to the family and friends of one of the greatest sons of the soil, Mr. Rashley Jackson. I think his passing is really a sad state of affair of our country. He has a track record in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a diplomat, and that may not do justice because of his career in that field, knowing what we have now as diplomats in that field currently. But I think Rashley Jackson and reading about him and his work, and I met him a couple of times, I am saddened by his passing, and I know that our country has lost a great son of the soil.
Thank you so much. You know, he did an impromptu appearance on Straight Up a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months ago, and I asked him about writing some books and doing something because we need it. We need our stalwarts. We need individuals such as Rashley Jackson and others to write so that our young people. Well, I'm not that young. You're young. You're just in your 20s now. Um, I know how old you are. Stop it. You don't have to tell us 33. You've been 33 since elections 2020. Something is wrong with your math. Something is wrong with your math, Mr. Mahipal. But let's begin. How have you been, sir?
I have been good, very, very busy and occupied in the political arena. Continue to visit various communities, do interactions with our constituencies. And also, I have been reaching across the aisle to many communities that are perceived to be People's Progressive Party oriented at the request of those communities, at the request of individuals within those communities, and they request to see us because they are dissatisfied with the way in which the current administration is handling the business of our country, and they want to share with us some of their concerns, which we give them a listening ear. And I know on the ground there is a clarion call and a cry for the return of the APNU AFC to government. I think more than ever they miss us deeply and greatly. And I keep encouraging them to stay focused, to hold the line of battle, and to recognize that another elections will come and they will be required to go out and vote solidly against the People's Progressive Party But as it is right now, that can only happen once we have a clean voters list. That is very, very important on the agenda. We need a credible elections. We need a credible list. We need an election that is free and fair and free from fear in this country so that the true will of the people can be represented in their vote. And we would like to see one person, one vote. So, for us to achieve that, we also need our citizenry, those who are listening to us, and also the various groups of our country to make that call. Join with us. Let us have credible elections. Let us have free and fair elections and elections that will be free from fear.
Well said, Honorable Member of Parliament Ganesh Mahipaul, and told by our executive producer. And yes, we do have an executive producer here at 107.1 FM, is signaling to me that our next guest, Attorney at Law Shellon Washington, is with us. We'll get to Miss Washington in just about 30 seconds or so because I want to ask her about her perspective as it pertains to elections petitions, and why is it that we're not seeing these petitions being dealt with in an expeditious manner. But before we get to our attorney, uh, Ganesh, in a country where sugar is supposed to be really, really inexpensive, we see people are lining up for sugar all over the country and maybe other items as well. The cost of living has gone cut skyrocket, really, really high. As you venture into communities, and even communities that are not necessarily pro APNU, pro coalition, pro PPP communities are upset. They are just basically fed up. How do you feel, sir, that in a country where sugar is being produced, that persons have to line up for sugar and so forth?
Mark, I myself was a victim of such. I had to be put in a line and await my turn to purchase 3 packs of sugar. And when I reached to the front, I'm told that I can only get 1 pack. And I bought the pack. And when I came home, the sugar was of no quality. It was very, very dark and it had a lot of obstacles in it. And I wanted to know what is really happening at Gaisuku and what is really going on with this Gaisuku CEO that the installed regime put there to bring some degree of change to Gaisuku. Instead, it has gone downwards and it is destroying the industry even more. Not only are people made to line up for sugar, which is an essential item in the kitchen, but also the cost of living is so high that people are basically crying out on a daily basis to just purchase the essential needs for the kitchen and to cater for their families. And you know, I've said openly and publicly that the government can make some changes to cause people to have more disposable income in their pockets, especially the public servants, the doctors, the teachers, the nurses, our servicemen and women, but in the in the Guyana Police Force, in the Guyana Defense Force, in the Guyana Fire Service. All these people, they work for a standard salary at the end of the month, and they are paid from the treasury of this country. The treasury that is currently right now getting a lot of money from oil, and the government can afford to reduce the income tax. When you reduce the income tax, you will basically be putting more disposable income into the pockets of our people. And they can also increase the income tax threshold. And that can also put more disposable income into the people's pocket. Additionally, I have called for there to be electricity and water rebates. Uh, I capped it at $25,000 for the electricity and $10,000 for the water supply. And once that happens, our taxpayers, the backbone of our economy, the people who work on a daily basis from 8 to 4:30 to provide services to our citizenry, they deserve to benefit in such a way where they can have the disposable income to cater for their families and provide for them without this burden of worrying whether where they're going to get their next meal. It is a sad state of affair in our country. It is extremely difficult for a number of people, if not all of the public servants. And it's a travesty to know that the government seems not to care about our public servants. They seem to want to break the public service completely. And to what extent? And they talk about this one Guyana thing, and we worry to know what really is the definition of one Guyana. And
You know,
the people who sit in these high offices at ministerial level and so on, they enjoy a driver who is being paid at least minimum wage. They enjoy free electricity, free water supply. They get housing allowance, entertainment allowance, a super salary. Their hands are in the cookie jar, and it is easy for them. They don't feel the pain that the ordinary citizenry of this country is feeling, and they seem just not to care. It's
they
sad.
seem just not to care, Ganesh. I know you can go on and on and on. Let us bring, and I got to get back to you because we want to get a feel as to the people on the ground. And even PPP supporters are upset with this installed regime, not only about sugar, other items, and the way the country is being governed by these individuals. Even their supporters are upset, and not even the cash grant is going to save them. We'll talk about the cash grant shortly. Mr. Mahipaul, member of parliament who has been suspended. He's not being paid. He just went for 3 packs of sugar. We heard they just told him he can just get one. He got home and the sugar wasn't really the type of sugar that he expected. Uh, Attorney at law, Shellon Washington, welcome to Straight Up. How are you doing, ma'am?
Hi, good night, Mark. I am doing well. And as always, it's a pleasure to be here. Good night to all your listeners. And again, like I said, it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
And thank you so much for being here as always. I'm not sure if our member of parliament is quite popular. He's all over. He's in the gutter, he's in the trench, he's in parliament, you name it. Anywhere you will see Ganesh. Uh, Here's an opportunity to talk to your member of parliament, Ganesh. You guys meet, you guys talk, say something. Greet each other.
Oh, you're telling me to say something
Yeah,
to him.
greet each other.
Oh, okay. Hi, good night, Member of Parliament, Ganesh. I do hope you guys, I listened to some of the things you're saying about what's happening in Guyana. And I do hope that you guys are doing all you can in Parliament to help the person on the street, the everyday person in Guyana who really needs help. Because as I could see what's happening in Guyana, I've seen the recent situation with the land, how they're treating Afro-Guyanese as it relates to land. And I do understand that the sugar is a big problem in Guyana, the shortage of sugar. And I just heard your story about the sugar that is not even sugar. I don't know what they sold, but I guess you could tell me some more about what you guys are actually doing in Parliament to try to help the situation that is happening in Guyana right now.
Well, thank you very much, Miss Washington. It's the first time I'm meeting you, unfortunately virtually, but I do believe that this can be a platform that we get to know each other even better, and we will be able, in due course of time, to see each other physically. Let me tell you straight that in Parliament we will continue to fight the good fight for our people, but the sad reality of what is happening in Guyana is that the PPP has that one seat majority, and they are using it at their whims and fancies to basically throw out all the proposals and all the suggestions that are coming from the coalition. Our speaker, Manzoor Nadir, when he was a member of parliament for the People's Progressive Party, he had a saying: "You have your say, but we will have our way." And that is because they have the number, and that is the end result of the game. In previous parliaments, there was this kind of amicable solution that one would bring to the table. You will have these discussions before coming to the floor, and you will make suggestions and basically work in the interest of the country. But you have a People's Progressive Party government now that is more focused on having their way when we will have our say. And right now, there are 8 members of parliament that were suspended from 4 and 6 sittings respectively. And in that suspension, it wasn't even done, in my view, in a democratic way in terms of respecting our constitutional right to a fair hearing. not because I'm a member of parliament, means that I am deprived that constitutional right to be heard. And you, as a lawyer, I am sure will be in a better position to guide me. I am not aware that any parliament can supersede the Constitution. The Constitution is the final document that guides the practice of the land. And I am of the firm opinion that all actions of us in Parliament, even though we regulate our own rules, it must be hinged and it must be premised on what is enshrined in the Constitution. And our Constitution in Article 144.8 allows me as a citizen of this country, notwithstanding being a member of Parliament, to be afforded a fair trial, to be afforded a fair hearing, to be afforded the right to counsel, amongst so many other fundamental rights. But the sad situation is that all of those rights were breached simply because of a one seat majority.
I think you're absolutely right. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and every student, every law student, I think in the first or the second year, they teach you constitutional law, and we are taught that the Constitution is indeed the supreme law of the land, which means it trumps any other rule, any other provision that is made to guide anybody. The Constitution leads that, and I think it's a very sad state of affairs where the government, the installed government, because of a one-seat majority, is refusing to adhere or to put any of the policies or any of the provisions that you guys, the opposition, is trying to raise or trying to put to them. I think what needs to be addressed is that the government is there to serve the people. They're not there for themselves. And I think this is something that is being missed by the government of Guyana. They're not focused on serving the people. That's their purpose. They're not there for their own agenda. They're not there to serve themselves. They're not there for their own self-interest, which I think is what is happening versus serving the interests of the people. The people of Guyana are who put them there, and their purpose is to serve them to the best of their ability, which means that you have to take into account any law, anything that the opposition is trying to implement or suggesting to you. You have to take into consideration, and if it's in the best interest of the people in Guyana, then I do not understand why the one seat majority is causing them to just ignore. It's like they're pressing the ignore button mark every time they have suggestion that is for the benefit of the people of Guyana. They just click the ignore button, but they have to take into account that they are there to serve the people.
Well,
And
that's
you know
one of
what,
the things.
before
Go
you
ahead,
before
Kat.
you go, Mark,
Go ahead,
you
sir.
know, Miss Washington, and the sad reality is this one seat majority was acquired through fraudulent means. Elections 2020 is marred with, or was marred with, a lot of abnormalities, irregularities, and anomalies. And we had a recount exercise which it showed us the amount of voter fraud that took place in our elections, all because of a bloated list. And one would believe that the government, the installed government, would see the merit in having a clean voters list so that we can have a true reflection of the will of the people. In the national recount, we found a series of things that are worrying. Deaf people voted. There were a number of boxes, 49 boxes without statutory documentation to verify the votes. There were a series of people who signed oaths, who did not sign oaths of identity, and they cast a ballot. You had missing poll books and a series of other documents that were missing. This was perhaps the only election where we examined the content of the ballot box before the declaration of a result, and we have recognized this amount of fraud. And you know, the only election that was ever vitiated in this country, or saw the light of a court where it was pronounced upon, was 1997, when Justice Claudette Singh vitiated those elections because of what was, in her view, the use of ID cards that deprived a number of persons, or something along that line. But when you see, the People's Progressive Party always want to pin rigged elections on the PNCR, but there is not one single evidence that can point to the People's Progressive, that can point to the People's National Congress reform being involved in rigged elections. We have always called for a clean voters list. We have always called for a proper system. We have always called for one vote to be equal to one person. And I had to remind another person who professes to be a commentator or wants to be a social media commentator now that in 1962, when the People's Progressive Party went to elections for chairmanship, Balram Singh Rai, who was a contender at that elections, was cheated out by the People's Progressive Party to favor a man by the name of Brintley Ben. That is well documented in one of his writings, and he even provided a statement to that effect. So if there is any evidence to support rigged elections, if there is any evidence to show that a political party has been associated to rigged elections, it is the People's Progressive Party. And I say that without any fear of contradiction. I say it with utmost confidence, and I know and I'm convinced that the People's Progressive Party are the real riggers of elections in Guyana.
Welcome back to 107.1 FM, Ganesh. Welcome back. Welcome back to the real Ganesh. We're now getting to see Ganesh again. We're glad that this Ganesh has returned. Thank you so much, Ganesh, telling it like it is. Let's not go all the way back to 1960 something with Balram Singh Rai and what he revealed. We know that there were elections malfunction or questionable election result out in Magdoum area as well, where a PNC individual was cheated of that seat. But let's move away from the 60s and the 70s. Let's go in modern times. In 2006, the PPP stole a seat from the AFC in Linden. And Sam Hines squatted on that seat. Your region, Miss Washington, Linden area, the PPP stole a seat. And there is the evidence that the PPP stole that seat. When they were caught, the then chief elections officer, Gokul Budu, actually said to the AFC, look, here what happened. We understand that there were some sort of irregularities, there was some mistake, and the seat wasn't really supposed to be given to Sam Hines. But there's nothing we can do at Guyana Elections Commission. Sorry, there's nothing we can do at GCOM. Y'all have to take it to the court via an elections petition. And so for 5 years, from 2006 to 2011, Sam Hines sat on that seat, squatted on that seat, that illegal seat. These people, these PPP vagabonds have no shame. As we would say under quarantine, them again, no shame. Oh, by. And yet they want to talk about rigged elections and PNC. They can talk all they want to talk, but there's no, and I agree with Ganesh, there is no evidence, none whatsoever. But let us not stop at 2006 alone. Let's go to 2011 elections. The same jiggery pokery, sorry, the same jiggery pokery, Ganesh, right? The same jiggery pokery. We basically were back because in 2011, they attempted to rig that one seat again, but they were caught. They were caught in their traps. And, the PPPC has absolutely no shame at all. Miss Washington, Mr. Mahipaul?
I have a serious problem with what is happening in Guyana in terms of rigging the elections and trying to hold on to power indefinitely. I have a serious problem because most of the countries who maintain some sort of balance in terms of fairness with how they treat people and in terms of economic growth in that country, they always let go of power. You can't have one person just sit in power indefinitely, and they're refusing even when the will of the people is that we don't want you there, but they refuse to leave. I mean, we cannot be able to progress when there's just we're just getting one side of the story all the time. We're just getting one set of policies all the time. Like they're not permitting for a different set of people with different ideas and, different things to be put in place for us to see growth. We need fresh mind. We need more people with, different types of ideas to help our country to grow and help Guyana to progress. But instead, we have this perpetual situation where one government refuses to give up power. I mean, where else do you see this level of corruption except in underdeveloped country? There's a reason why those countries are underdeveloped, because they refuse to allow fresh minds. They refuse to allow brilliant minds to come and to put, good policies in place and move on. The most successful countries allow for, the different government to go in place at different time in different era. Now you have a man from the 1990s era leading Guyana in the 2000s, like we're in the mid 2000s, and we still have somebody who was in power somewhere in the 90s still sitting there and refuses to vacate that seat to allow for a fresh brilliant mind to go and sit there and to rule our country. We need to progress. And I do not see us progressing unless the people of Guyana, they have to get up. We have to get up, and we have to keep preaching about this. We have to keep educating our people so that they will realize that we're being suppressed. You're being kept in a perpetual state of poverty and suppression because of the one-sided government, one-sided policies, who refuses to vacate the seat, vacate parliament, give up power, and allow for a different generation, people with different ideas, to go there and to rule our country and to help it to develop economically. Now, you cannot tell me somebody who been there from the 1990s, where is their ideas? Where are they getting fresh ideas from? Where are they getting new policies from? Are they researching? Are they doing anything to make Guyana progress economically, financially? Yes, we have the oil, but what is being done with the oil? I do not see any progress. I do not see us moving in the direction we need to go unless Guyanese stand up and say, well, our will has to be, it has to prevail. The will of the people must prevail over the desires of one party to stay there perpetually.
Ganesh, you want to add something?
In any real democracy, I remember, and we should not allow this to ever get lost in the wilderness. Vice News was in Guyana and conducted an interview with Barrett Jagdeo. And in that interview, he was asked if he collects bribe and so on, and he doubted. But then there was the video recording that came out that engaged, that had Jagdeo and Sue. And to this day, we don't know if Sue was served or what has happened with Sue, which is very concerning. But we must not allow the fact to dissipate, where it is alleged that Vice President Jagdeo is in deep corruption with Sue and matters pertaining to our country and our resources. And this individual said with his own mouth.
I think Ganesh was interrupted there for a quick minute.
Yeah, we're back with your mic is muted, Mr. Mahipaul. Your microphone, sir. Your microphone. We
I
can't.
don't think he could hear us, Mark.
Yeah,
The
but
sound might be off. Okay, there you go.
Sorry about that. A call was coming in. I'm saying that this individual, Jagdeo, said that Sue handles all the arrangement and agreements, and he deals with the government side of it. And still, our countries are waiting to know how many agreements did Sue handle, how many arrangements did Sue put in place, what are the deals from those agreements, and a whole host of other things that can basically fall under the category of corruption. In any democracy, Miss Washington, this man would have had to step down and allow an impartial investigation surrounding these allegations. But no, you see a pompous individual protected by the highest office and individuals surrounding him, friends, families, and favorites, as opposed to the country's interests at heart. as opposed to the people's interests at heart, as opposed to what is democratically correct in what they call a democracy. We don't see that kind of practice. And then you have a series of other unfortunate ventures going on surrounding him again. And we don't seem to be going in the right direction under this cabal to ensure that the will of the people is represented to the fullest in a democratic state. Instead, what you have is the constant breakdown of the guardrails of our democracy. You have a failed economy. It's only the oil money that is making it look good, but the non oil economy is sinking. And oil is a resource that will finish at some point in time, too. You have the natural resource fund where the money goes into, and they keep taking out the money, and God knows what they're spending it on. They have not told the nation where they have spent $83 billion from as yet. And this is the individual that wants to talk to us about one Guyana. You see how they're attacking an African organization, IPADG, for various different political reasons. But governments have given monies before to the Indian Action Committee also, the Indian Arrival Committee, I think, or something, or IEC, I think is the name. And government give money to the First Lady office also. Government gives money to a number of other organizations, but you don't see them calling for financial statement or audited statements of those organizations. There is a calculated attack on IPADG. And IPADG is an organization that was set up to basically conduct programs and to basically educate and inform our citizens of African descent in an effort to lift them out of the nightmare they unfortunately found themselves in over a number of years, based on what many people have concluded as basically suppressing them. And Ipadaji was birthed out of the decade of African descent. And it's an organization that has done so much for the people of African descent. And they have documented it and they have elaborated on it on countless occasions. But this calculated political attack on them is meant to stifle them, and basically the government is leaning in a direction to not provide more resources to them so they can continue their work. What the People's Progressive Party is afraid of is an educated nation. And Ipadaji was focused on educating their people. And I've said this on Mark's program years ago, that if this People's Progressive Party seriously wants to develop our country, then they will invest heavily in education. And an educated nation will become a developed nation quicker. But they don't want that, because if they only educate our people, it is the people that will move away from them and their indoctrination. The people will move away from them and what they keep banging in their heads as untruthful statements. And that is what the People's Progressive Party is afraid of. And they saw that Ipadaji was heading in a direction of educating the people, was heading in a direction of teaching the people how to fish and not necessarily to give them a fish. They talk about a whole host of unsubstantiated allegations against Ipadaji, and they're being confronted by the learned and intelligent Vincent Alexander. But we see where this is going. It is all going in a direction to stifle Ipadaji and to not provide resources to Ipadaji so that Ipadaji can continue to work for our African brothers and sisters. Quite unfair, quite unfortunate. And when people talk about an emerging apartheid regime or an apartheid state, they not only speak about it in its context of apartheid behavior, but what is happening is leaning in that direction, and it is frightening. It is extremely frightening.
I
All right,
think
well said.
Gary,
Before we get back to the attorney, Shellon Washington, well said, Mr. Ganesh Mahipaul. Just yesterday or 2 days ago, we heard the guy who sits there as the Minister of Sports, Youth, and Culture, or whatever it is that he sits there doing, God in heaven knows what. He actually urged that IPADG, the African Guyanese organization, to produce their books in terms of an audit. But again, I agree with Ganesh. They have the Indian Arrival Committee that had an office at the office of the president. No other organization has had that privilege to have an office at the office of the president during Jagdev's presidency, during Ramatar's presidency, etc., etc. The IAC, they were sitting there, they were funded. God in heaven knows what they were doing with the money. Millions of dollars were given to them for Pagwa, for Diwali, whatever. And nothing is wrong with that, mind you, right? But we have never heard of any regime, be it the PPP, these PPP, asking the folks at IAC for an audit for their books. They're not going to do that for
You
obvious
know,
reasons.
you
Then
know, Mark,
they
Mark
gave
and
the they
Shellon.
gave the private service commission folks hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of concessions and all manner of things, billions of dollars in concessions. They give other organizations, whether religious organizations and so forth and so on, but a little crumbs that they give as taxpayers' money they give to this African organization, they want to publicly embarrass them to say, we want your books. In other words, you guys are corrupt. You guys are this. You guys are that. These people are a bunch of hypocrites. Before we get to Shellon Washington, our attorney, Ganesh, you were making a point, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to say, Mark, I wanted to say to you and Miss Washington that I am a proud Hindu Indian Guyanese, and I will support any government that will throw resources behind activities that can support social cohesion. Social cohesion in the context of respecting other people's religion and respecting other people's culture. So when you have Diwali and Pagwa, the same the same zeal and zest that you provide for those activities, it must also go towards Eid al Adha or Eid al Fitr or Yawm al Nabi or Christmas or Easter. Or if you are going to celebrate the arrival of East Indians in Guyana, you must equally celebrate the freedom of our African brothers and sisters, or the arrival of our Portuguese, or whatever other mechanism you put in place to enhance social cohesion. And IPADG was an organization or is an organization that is not only focused directly on providing a help to to our African brothers and sisters, but it is also an organization that is teaching our African brothers and sisters their history and putting it into context for their understanding and their edification, which assists a nation also. So I am personally against this attack, this political attack on Ipadiji and the work that Ipadiji has been doing. Ipadiji has a number of educated professors and a number of persons of high standing in society. I am not disputing that they need to account for the resources that are provided to them from the state, but equally so, the other organizations must do the same. You cannot talk about one Guyana, and the manner in which you are operating is as though you want to just attack one section of society and the others get a free pass. What is good for the goose must
Good.
equally be good for the gander.
Absolutely. We'll stick a pin at that and bring in Shellon Washington, attorney at law. You see what is happening. You heard Ganesh there describing how the PPP is going after that African organization. And in all fairness, I also agree with Ganesh. All organizations should give an account to how they're spending taxpayers' money. But when the PPP is singling out this African organization only. No other organization, as said before, they have given IAC millions of taxpayers' monies. We've never heard of them asking to show the books. They can't say that the IAC books has always been clean. They can't say that the billions of dollars that they give in concession to the private sector commission and all those other so-called businessmen and so forth is fair. They can't say that the hundreds of millions of dollars they've given to their friends, for example, over 100 and something million give taxpayers' money given to Jack Deere's friend Buddies to build the Buddies International Hotel that is now called some whatever it is that it's called right now.
Granada.
Right, good. All these things. Now let's bring the attorney in, please, Ms. Washington.
Mark, I think therein lies the problem, because it's not just a pedagogy, it's just Afro Guyanese at large, the way they're treated in Guyana. And I personally believe, I think Pastor Shugrim was here once, and he was discussing some of the issues that was being faced with the Afro Guyanese from his village. And I believe it's just their policy towards Afro Guyanese. It's really wrong. And this is why I'm saying the perpetual rulership of one party, where the same people remain in control of the country, is really, really bad. And it's really defeating the Guyanese people. And the will of the people is not being manifested. So I personally think the policies has to change. And at some point, Guyanese, they're going to have to get up, they're going to have to stand up, and they're going to have to fight. They're going to have to say, well, we have had enough. And it comes through consistently pressing. You have to put pressure on the people in parliament, and it has to be some level of consistency. So you can't get up today and say, we're going to protest today, but tomorrow you don't. Changes comes through consistency. You have to let your will be present. The will of the people has to prevail in Guyana. So it's not just a pedagogy. They're not just focused on the one African organization. Yes, this is a big issue, what they're doing to that organization, and asking that they provide accounting for whatever funds was provided to them. But I totally agree. If they're asking for an accounting, then they should apply that across the board. Everyone must be treated the same. So if you're asking Ipadagy to account for the funds that they have, every single organization that the Guyana government contributed or donated funds to must similarly account for those funds and provide their accounting records to show what those funds were used for. But I think it's just the government's policy generally, because I've heard about the situation even with the lands that were, Africans own that land. And now I heard that they're taking those lands, and they're just giving portions to Afro Guyanese. If they're lucky, they'll get a piece of land. So it's just their policy. It's just wrong. And we need a fresh breed of people who are not partial, they're not biased, but they learn how to appreciate and treat everyone equally, treat everyone the same. Don't treat somebody differently because you're Afro Guyanese. We're all, if you want a one Guyana, then you got to practice what you preach. You have to put policies in place which treats people fairly across the board. If I'm in Linden, then give me my land, give me my portion in my community that I live in. If I'm in Berbice, give me my portion that I'm entitled. The government doesn't own the land. The people own it. The government needs to understand the people own Guyana. It's a cooperative republic. The people control the government, not the other way around. And I think people has to wake up and realize that you control the narrative. It's not the government. The government is controlling because you allow the government to do such. But the minute you wake up and you realize that the country is yours, the song that I heard on the radio when I was a child, this land is my land, this land is your land, from the Rupununi to the quarantine. This land, Guyana's land, is yours. It's Guyanese people's land. And they need to wake up and realize that it's your country. And you don't sit by idly and allow a government which perpetually sits there and tries to control your country to stay there and to tell you what to do and to control you. You need to advocate for changes. You have to stand up and say, well, enough is enough. The Afro-Guyanese has been suppressed long enough. They've been suppressed through slavery, colonialism, and now they're being suppressed by their own government. And it's not right. For many, many years since I was a child, there was brain draining, and all the Afro-Guyanese who went to university and acquired some level of education, they left because they couldn't deal with what was coming their way in Ghana. And I think it has to change so that Guyanese people will be proud of their country. They will want to stay and work and live there. They will want to help to develop Ghana. It's incredible that Ghana is no better off from when I attended the University of Ghana years ago. It's no better off. So I think we have got to continue to press, and programs like this that Mark has is very, very instrumental in advocating for changes in Ghana. Because those people who are listening to these programs, they're learning, they're being educated that this is how this works. It doesn't work where your government controls you. The country is yours. And the more Guyanese become educated, the more they'll realize that, listen, we have to bond together. It's not Indo-Guyanese, it's not Afro-Guyanese, but it's one Guyana. And we have to ensure that each and every one of us are treated equally.
And when you say one Guyana, we really do mean one people, one nation, one destiny, not the type of fake one Guyana this fake president is talking about. Well said, Miss Washington. I couldn't disagree with anything. I have a question for both you and the Honorable Member of Parliament, Ganesh Mahipaul, who is suspended for several sittings and he hasn't gotten a salary for a while. I know he's probably sitting there a little bit hungry.
And I was fired from 107.1.
No, you weren't fired. We'll be right back. We'll be right back. We'll take this quick break so you get some information on the attorney that is speaking here tonight. She is one brave attorney. And if you need an attorney, you're in Brooklyn or wherever, here is her information, please.
So this is attorney Shellon Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Straight Up. My name is Mark Benschop. Our guests are tonight. They are Ganesh Mahipaul, the Honorable Member of Parliament who has been expelled. We'll get to that shortly. And
Suspended, expelled.
Suspended, my apologies, suspended without pay. And we have attorney at law, Shellon Washington, is based out in New York. If you do need an attorney, whether you have some some issues with immigration. Sorry about that. I mean, whatever it is, give her a call. If you slip, you fall. If you have problem with your landlords, if you have problem with your tenants, whatever, give her a call. Sorry, I don't know why the word royal is on my mind. But let's get back to business here on 107.1 FM. I got a question. Let's begin with, let's see who we can ask this question first to. People have been saying around that Guyana is heading in the direction of being an apartheid state, having discussed all that we have discussed in terms of how the government or so-called government installed regime, they're targeting mainly persons of African descent. It is not to say that their own supporters are being ill-treated. Of course, their own supporters are being ill-treated. Of course, their own supporters are upset. That is why the Honorable Member of Parliament, Ganesh Mahipaul, did say that members of parliament are being invited to go into PPP stronghold area because even those PPP people are upset and fed up. But specifically, how the PPP regime is targeting persons of African descent. The description of Guyana right now is apartheid. Let's start with our attorney. Your take, is this a fair enough description of what's happening right now in Guyana?
I believe so, Mark. And I did mention when you had the pastor Shugrim on your program, when he discussed some of the things that was happening in his community. And I do believe the treatment that is being met to Afro-Guyanese, that is creating some serious issues. And I think people are beginning to become conscious, because consciousness is, once you become conscious of what's happening, what your environment entails, you're going to wake up and one day you're going to start to fight back. It's exactly what happened when slaves gained their emancipation. They woke up and they realized that they had to fight. They had to do something to set themselves free, because they realized the colonial masters was not going to hand their freedom to them, but they had to get up and fight for it. And it's the same thing that's going to happen now, that African Guyanese, they're going to wake up and they're realizing that they're being treated differently from the Indo-Guyanese. And they're once they're awake and they recognize that, they're going to start to fight, and then that could create a division in the country. And I think the government must wake up too, because if they recognize that people are becoming conscious of what's happening in their country, and then they're not just sitting idle, and then the government, the what do they call that black squad that was there when I was in Guyana, in University of Guyana,
That squad.
that the dead squad, it cannot work now, because now there's smartphones, people have camera, the world could now see what's happening, people could live stream things that is happening, and people all over the world could see it in real time. So the death squad can't just go around and doing extrajudicial killing anymore, because now the world is watching, and now the world sees what has been happening in Guyana. And now the government is realizing that they just can't take these drastic measures, because even I heard the member of parliament mention that the constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, it trumps everything, and every single person is entitled to a fair trial. They're entitled to a hearing. If you're going to take a right, if you're going to take their liberty, if you're going to take their property or take any right away from them, before those things are taken, you must be tried. This is constitution. This is the law. You cannot deprive a person of anything without first putting them through a hearing. And I think this is one of the missteps with the member of parliament, which he mentioned earlier. And I think this is one of the missteps where the government is taking these actions, or in the past they've taken actions against Guyanese people without a hearing. That's what the dead squad was doing, taking a life without taking a person to the system and allowing them to get a trial and a hearing on all these things. All of that was skipped. And they just took these people's life. But this cannot happen anymore, because people are wising up, and now things has changed. Now we have something very, very instrumental, the internet. So now you cannot do things and not it wouldn't be exposed. It will be exposed, because somebody will be there with a smartphone recording every single moment of it, and then it's going to go all over the internet viral, and then the world at large is going to see. So I think the government themselves they got to wake up and recognize that they're causing this division in the country. They're causing issues, and people are waking up, and it has to change.
It certainly has to change indeed. Member of Parliament Ganesh Mahipaul, again, in response to people's perception right now. A lot of people are of the view, folks African descent, are of the view that the PPP is practicing apartheid in Guyana, some level of apartheid in Guyana. Your take, sir. You're on the ground.
Mark, the word apartheid originated years ago, generations ago. And the meaning that it carried generations ago is still applicable today, but there has been a degree of evolution in the type of practice that is causing us to draw the conclusion that our state is heading into a direction of apartheid behavior. And when you look at the evolution of time and what was the practice of countries such as South Africa that experience apartheid behavior from their regime, and you look at what is happening in Guyana today, it is more like an evolution of that word into this political trying of the People's Progressive Party to doubt it. And how is it that they're attempting to doubt that our state is heading in a direction of apartheid behavior? They will talk about a couple of Afro-Guyanese that may have received a scholarship, and justifiably they will say that we're not an apartheid state. Or they will talk about a couple of Afro-Guyanese that they have given lands to, and they will say we are not an apartheid state. Or they will talk about a couple of Guyanese that they have provided some jobs to and draw that conclusion. But when you look at the political behavior and the political practice of the People's Progressive Party, it is as though they are treating a few of their Afro-Guyanese friends that may very well be connected to the few Afro-Guyanese that are associated to their political party. And that is why we continuously say that the People's Progressive Party is a government consisting of friends, families, and favorites. And you may have a few Afro-Guyanese that fall into that category belonging to them. But you have to look at it from the biggest picture. Some may say the bigger picture, but I'm saying the biggest picture here. Because the majority of Afro-Guyanese are not receiving the proper guidance and assistance that they rightfully deserve as citizens of this country. We can go back to the simple distribution of $25,000 cash grant to all our people in terms of households. There is no doubt that Guyana is a country with communities and villages that are perceived either coalition supporters or PPP supporters. And when these people were distributing that cash grant, in perceived People's Progressive Party area, their modus operandi was different from what they were doing in predominant Afro-Guyanese communities. I remember in Wakenham, a predominant Indo community, the distributors were sitting underneath of a mango tree and they were calling people to come and collect the $25,000. A number of persons reported to me that in their household, they had about 3 or 4 persons that received the $25,000 when it was entitled just one per household. I complained about this to the Minister of Human Services and Social Security. Nothing has happened. But when they went into these Afro communities, you see that the people there had to prove that they were actually living there. They had to show them their bathrooms, they had to show them their kitchen, they had to show them their lavatory facility, their bedrooms, to prove that they actually live there before they get that 25,000. So is that not an evolution of the definition of the word apartheid? In my view, it is, because it may not apply to the definition that is in the textbook. But when you look at the practice on the ground and with the evolution of time and the sophisticated political way of stifling a section of society, you have to term it within that context. And there's so many other things that I can point to you. When you talk about equitable distribution of resources, you have to, as a country, as a government, as a nation, empower your people to the point where they are treated with equity. You cannot give one section of society $100,000 and another section of society that was deprived of being empowered the same $100,000 and expect both of them to be lifted equally. You have a section of society that was not traumatized like our African brothers and sisters, and yet you want to give them equally and say they will be lifted accordingly or equally. No, it goes to the whole core of recognizing what is the definition of the word equally versus the word equity. And in any society where there's equitable distribution of our resources, the tide will rise all boats. But we do not have that today in our society. We cannot point in the direction of saying that our races or ethnic groups are treated with equity. And this entire month that we had, which recently ended as Emancipation Month, how many of those, excuse me, how many of those activities that were held in Emancipation Month were publicized, were carried on the state run media, were actually shown to the public and exposed in terms of government's participation and government's sponsorship? We come back to talking about the whole aspect of targeting Afro organizations like Ipadagy, which we mentioned earlier. But we had a building expo at Providence Stadium there. Don't they need to account and show how is it that the money was spent for that? We had some other activities that were held, Agro Expo or Agri Expo, and I don't know whatever else they had. Don't they have to account for that? We have taxpayers' money that were going to assist rice farmers to the tune, I think, $45,000 per acre of rice land that was prepared but could not be cultivated or could not be continued for cultivation. Don't they have to account for that? Fisher folk were actually given, I think, 250,000 or somewhere thereabout, or 150,000. Can't remember the figure. Don't they have to account for that? And it goes to show that the attack on the African Guyanese and the attack on their manner of doing things and their manner of actually trying to lift their people is being treated differently from how they treat the others. And in that light, I would say to you, Mark, that there's an evolution of the definition of the word apartheid, and that is in the context of which I want to put the point to you and my sister Shellon.
Thank you.
Mark, if I just may just
Sure.
quickly say one thing for those of our listeners who might not be familiar with apartheid. The word apartheid simply means segregation or discrimination against a group of people to treat them differently from another group. So, in the context of Guyana, when we speak about apartheid, we're simply using it not necessarily in the context of segregation, but mostly the discriminatory part, because we don't have that part where you segregate and keep one set of people separate from the other. Like we've had segregation in the United States in American history. So we don't have it in the context where Afro-Guyanese are not permitted to go certain places or they're not permitted to do certain things. But we do have it in the context where Afro-Guyanese are treated very, very differently from Indo-Guyanese. And as you heard before, Member of Parliament Mahipaul just mentioned the grant, the $25,000 grant that was being distributed, and the way it was, that was some sort of apartheid because Afro-Guyanese were severely discriminated in the distribution of that wealth.
All right, thank you so much for your time. We're looking at the time here too at 107.1 FM, and we know how it is in Guyana. You know, we talk our story, we don't hide anything. I know what might be going through the honorable MP's mind is that he is out of a job. He's not being able to sit in Parliament, but he has taken his Parliament outside of the building, and he's in the streets. He's in the gutters. He's all over doing his thing. Congratulations to you, Honorable MP. And I also know, since you guys don't have any salary, you've been on here for over 1 hour now, and your data plan might be going. So your phone data plan might be going. So we have to hurry up and get the program going. But before we go, Honorable, not MP, but let's go over to the attorney. Here is an attorney at law, someone who sits there as an attorney at law knowing that there are two elections petitions being heard in the court, knowing that there are other court matters, frivolous court matters pertaining to electoral fraud and so forth being brought against individuals, reputable individuals, Roxanne Myers, Keith Lowenfield, and Mingo, and others. But here it is, a guy who sits there as Attorney General. He's a lawyer. He is asking GCOM to provide evidence of voter fraud to him. Your take on this from a legal standpoint, Ms. Washington?
Um, I'm not sure when he's requesting evidence of voters fraud. I'm not sure what is he going to make of that information. Is he? I don't know if you could answer that question mark, because a lot of times when questions are posed to us as attorney, we have to have more information before we could even, sanction on it. My question is, if he's requesting evidence of fraud from GCOM, what does he intend to do with that evidence? Because as I understand it, the purpose of the Attorney General, his function, part of his function would be, to initiate claims against certain individuals.
Let's take a pin different. Not when they are party to court matters. They are part and parcel
Okay,
of the
you're
election
absolutely
petition.
right.
Mark,
This is why I asked, because I wanted clarity, because in the United States, the Attorney General's office does carry out investigation, and when they
Fair
do
enough. Yep.
investigate, they do prosecute. But in Guyana, on the other hand, the Attorney General is not elected independent of the government. The Attorney General is part of the government in this instance. So if the Attorney General is requesting evidence of fraud from GCOM, my guess is that he's not going to use that evidence in any way to go against his own self, because he is a part of the PPP. So I'm not understanding what would be the logics or what would be his purpose, other than to take that evidence and turn around and to suppress it for requesting that evidence. I don't see anything being accomplished by him requesting, because as I understand, those evidence were presented before the court before, and those evidence was available publicly. So to come back again and to go to GCOM and ask for evidence of fraud when it's already been presented, as far as I know, it doesn't seem very plausible or proper to me, especially since it goes against his own party, the PPP.
Absolutely. Ganesh, you wanted to say something, sir?
Mark, I want to tell you and Miss Shellon, Washington, that the People's Progressive Party are experts when it comes to distraction politics. There are 2 elections petitions lying in the courts to be heard, and the only competent authority to pronounce on the validity of elections is via an elections petition, and it is the jurisdiction of the courts. And this, what Anil Nandalal is attempting to do, is an attempt to hoodwink the people of Guyana. It is an attempt to bamboozle the people of Guyana, and it is definitely distraction politics at its best, trying to take away from the whole aspect of them being installed through fraudulent means to be in the powers of government. We must not allow them to distract us from what is before the courts. We must not allow them to drive fear into our minds and try to play with our thought process in this distraction that they are famous for. We must stay focused at all times with reference to the bigger picture. And it comes back to what I was opening my comments with on this program. And that is, elections in Guyana will continue to be marred in controversy if we don't get a clean voters list. Elections in this country will continue to be problematic if we have a chairman of GCOM always siding with the People's Progressive Party in terms of how she votes on the commission. When GCOM was conceptualized and put into play, It was three from the governing side and three from the opposition, with an impartial chairperson that had a casting vote, yes, but it was expected that before that casting vote is used, the two sides will always try to find a compromise. They will always try to find consensus, and they will always try to meet each other halfway. That was the whole rationale behind the formation of GCOM, having three on the government side and three on the opposition. And if they could not find consensus after much deliberation, meaningful deliberation, then is when the chairperson is expected to take a position. But when you have a situation like what we have right now, where, for example, the APNU AFC is saying that if we cannot facilitate a new house-to-house registration in an attempt to have a clean voters list, and if we cannot remove names of persons from that voters list, then let's move in a direction of biometrics so that the people who present themselves to vote, the biometrics will verify that they are who they say they are. That, I think, is a fair position. The late Bibi Shadiq, who served as a commissioner on GCOM, accepted that argument at one point in time where she ventilated that position. But suddenly the People's Progressive Party is now shifting away from that position. And perhaps maybe it is because they recognize that if they go down that road, they will be out from power. They will be removed from power because they do not enjoy the majority of supporters in this country. The will of the people is not what they are sitting in power on. The will of the people was tampered with in elections 2020. The will of the people is not reflected in the government that we have. And we are simply saying from the opposition side right now that we want the will of the people to be represented in our government. We want the will of our people to sit in the National Assembly and to make laws and govern how we behave as a country. And any right-minded Guyanese, any right-thinking Guyanese will look in the direction of ensuring that democracy is kept alive and well by ensuring that the will of the people is represented. But when you have an administration that is running away from that, and biometrics is simple, GCOM already has the fingerprint of all the persons who are registered. GCOM already has that in their database. So it is just a matter of you adding that to the procedure of voting. So even if you, Miss Shellon, Washington, comes back to Guyana and you don't have a Guyanese ID card, when you put your finger on the little pad there, it will pick up that you are Shellon, Washington, or Mark Benschop. It will pick you up. So it is just an additional measure. And it will still be in the authority of the presiding officer, because even if you pick up a little error, there are other procedures that you follow. You may have someone who has their ID card, but the biometric system showed an error. You have a folio, and that folio has information on that person. And you can ask that person questions. When is your mother's birthday? What is your mother's name? What is your father's name? What is his birthday? What is your birthday? Those kind of questions, and you're expected to answer it. And you will also have your officers in their respective, you will have your officers, all the political parties will have their officers to see the face. So biometric is a way to go.
It
but
is.
The PPP is running from that too.
The PPP is running from that. You did say that and the formation of the Guyanese Elections Commission. I know back in 1992, there was Rudy Collins, and Rudy Collins was actually placed there to be fair, to be impartial. However, after Rudy Collins, there uh, maybe 99% of the chairman of the Ghana Elections Commission were not fair. They were very partial. You had all the Singhs. You had, and then the latest was Dr. Suraj Bali, and the perception that those guys were not fair at all. We had in one case where Mr. Dudnath Singh, senior counsel, after being chairman of the Ghana Elections Commission, he went on to become Attorney General under the PPP regime. So the perception of unfairness, the perception of partiality of all of those chairmen that were appointed by the PPP were not fair at all. They were not
Mark,
concerned about, one second, Mr. Ganesh, they were not concerned about good governance. We saw a bit of fairness under Mr. Patterson. And now we thought that under, and I got to say, sorry, Mr. Mahipaul, but I got to say, she was my friend for so many years. She was a victim of the PPP. And even after the 2020 elections, it's the PPP people who wanted to kill her. She knows it too. But yet, for some inexplicable reason, she seems to be afraid of the PPP. I don't know if she's operating under duress. But before I go to my next question to Ms. Shellon Washington, attorney at law, you wanted to say something, Mr. Mahipaul.
I just wanted to say that Steve Surajbali presided over the 2006 matter where Sam Hines was basically squatting in on a seat belonging to the AFC,
They
and
weren't squatting on a seat, Mr. Mahipal. They
okay,
rigged
stole
that seat they
they
stole it.
stole that
Go
seat.
ahead. Go ahead.
Suraj Bali presided over that.
Yeah.
Suraj Bali provided over the 2011 saga where Gokul Budu was trying to put the PPP in a majority when the results reflect that they should be in a minority. And the PPP didn't call for his removal. 2015, when they were voted out of office, the first thing they did was to call for Steve Surajbali to go because Surajbali was not playing their game. And you see the hypocrisy in them now. We have so many evidence to support why Claudette should go, but they don't want to join with us to say Claudette should go.
Because they're holding on to Claudette for obvious reasons. Claudette knew that they were threatening her life. Claudette knew that they wanted to kill her. She was in depressed. She was sad about the whole situation. I am surprised that my friend Claudette Singh has swing. But let's get to another matter before we go because I'm watching the time here. Lemon has to go to his other job later in the morning. But as an attorney, that is not me, at least not yet, but Miss Shellon Washington, as an attorney, you are, that is. This is a detective, sergeant out in Guyana, investigating a murder probe. The murder probe was actually shoved under the rug. He is now alleging that certain officers of the Guyana Police Force were part of this conspiracy to cover up this murder probe because it allegedly involves a so-called prominent businessman and his security guard in Guyana. What is your take thus far on this revelation and the fact that the police force seem to be targeting this guy and not wanting to hear what he has to say? Your take from a legal standpoint.
Well, Mark, first of all, I'm not surprised that if a murder probe is being covered up, that the police force would take that stand and try to, try to shy away from it or try to cover the entire matter up. We know, and it's well known, that there's a lot of corruption in Guyana. This is nothing new. If a police officer comes forward and he has information to show that there's some sort of corruption in a murder investigation, the police force ought to take that seriously and they ought to themselves investigate the police officers, and the police officers who are alleged to have been involved in that, they ought to be put on leave or to be, some action need to be taken against them until the investigation is completed. But I do understand a lot of times these type of cases, high profile, I would call it, because this is a high profile type of murder case. There's a lot of things that might be going on. People might have accepted bribery because, as you said, a businessman is involved, a high profile businessman.
Alleged.
Well, well, alleged, because you're right. In criminal law, there's only allegations until it's proven. So you're correct. It's alleged, but the police force should investigate. If a member of their own force is claiming certain things, and these are serious allegations that other police officers were involved, it ought to be investigated. And if there's any merits to those allegations, those officers or whoever was involved in it ought to be charged also. And that's the proper thing to do legally rather than try to sweep it under any rug and try to cover up, because money might have passed and they can't return the money at this point. But unfortunately, if anybody accepted money, if there's any money in terms of bribery that was accepted in this case, in this type of investigation, it needs to come to the forefront, and the police force need to do the right thing. They need to clean up house in Guyana.
Absolutely agree with you. We will ask Mr. Mahipaul, Honorable Member of Parliament, for 1 minute on his take on this revelation coming out from Dion Bascom, Detective Sergeant. In this
Mark,
case.
I want to say that a number of persons have their say in this matter, and a number of persons are speaking from a position of lack of information. And I do not want to fit into that category to speak from a position of lack of information. I can tell you comfortably that I have been seeking information relating to this matter, and I have been speaking to a number of persons concerning this matter so as to get a good grounding with respect to what is happening.
Well,
And
let me ask you this, Honorable Member of Parliament. I'm not sure what other information you're seeking other than what's in public domain. Here is a detective who's saying, look, that he was part of a murder probe into the investigating the murder of this guy. He is saying that this guy happens to be one of the suspects in this case, and the police has never arrested this suspect, and that this suspect allegedly threatened him. We have heard of this name. This is a so-called prominent businessman in Guyana by the name of Azardine Mohammed. The security guard belongs to his company, and their names have been calling. This detective, Mr. Dion Bascom, has outlined that, look, he was part of the probe. He presented what he defined as evidence into this probe. He has also said that this senior officer was part of this alleged corruption, that this officer was part of that. He has implicated these officers in covering up this matter. My question to you is, sir, and not to put you on a spot, you're not a man who's oftentimes put on a spot. What more information do you need, Honorable Member
Minister.
of Parliament? What
no,
more
don't
information do you
get
need, sir,
listen.
to
Don't
pronounce on this matter? The RSS is there, and we have seen that Robeson Ben said that the RSS needs more time, needs more.
don't get me
Look,
wrong.
Robeson
I
Ben
don't
is
want
saying
you to
this. Robeson Ben is saying this. What more information do you need, sir? What more information?
Um,
Talk to us.
Mark,
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 an honorable member of Parliament. I'm
One
sorry.
second, Miss
Listen, I
Shellon
just
Washington. 1 second. Are you attempting to represent Mr. Mahipal now?
no. I just want to say something to
Go
Minister
ahead.
to Mahipaul,
Yeah.
honorable member of Parliament. This is what usually happen in democratic country. If there are allegations, it has to be investigated.
and that is the point I was coming to, Miss Washington. That is
Go
why
ahead,
I'm
sir.
saying to Mark, don't misconstrue what I am saying. I am aware that the RSS is in play, but I am speaking from a position of not having confidence in our Guyana police force to conduct a proper investigation, nor do I have confidence that they will treat with the RSS in a manner to bring justice to the family of this young man, Paper Sharts. And what I was going to say before I was rudely interrupted by our host, and I'm allowed to say that, is that I do believe that there is need for an international investigation surrounding this matter because of the magnitude of allegations that surround it. And I don't want to make a pronouncement based on what was merely said, because that very gentleman who made one statement. In fact, the other one that made one statement went back on another program and made a completely
No,
different
no,
statement.
that individual is irrelevant.
No, but the point, no,
He is basically,
regardless of that,
mind
I
you,
want you to hear me out, Mark.
we know what
Mark,
happened
you need to
there.
hear me out.
One
You
second,
need,
one second, sir. This is the first time you're back after so many months. You're not going to bully me, please. Not tonight. This individual was basically accused of being part of the murder. He recants his first story and says something else. And look, Ganesh, we all know what's happening there.
no, but listen, I am not,
sticking to
Mark,
I'm sticking one sec. I'm sticking to what the detective is saying. He was part of this investigation, and no one has refuted him thus far. But continue, sir.
and
Continue.
I am not questioning what you are doing, but I am holding to the position as a person with no legal standing that I do not bear the capacity because of what I'm seeing. And that is why I'm using the opportunity to call for an international investigation.
Fair enough.
International impartial
It's not going to happen.
investigation
It's not gonna happen.
surrounding the matter.
It's
And
not going to
member,
happen.
member of
I
Miss
parliament,
Washington, it's
Listen,
not going to happen, Ganesh.
I am not, listen, no, you're not going to dispute me from making my point very clear, Mark. You're going to give me that opportunity to let you know that the position I'm holding to is an international impartial investigation. It is necessary because I believe here in Guyana, where I live, where I dwell, where I interact with people, that this thing runs deeper than what we are hearing and seeing.
but
And I'm
member,
saying to you and Miss Washington that with the international impartial investigation, there can be more coming out of it than what we are actually hearing.
member of parliament, Mahipaul, I agree, but I'm still saying, because you don't have to have any standing at all to have an opinion on a matter that is of importance in your country as a member of parliament. This is a serious issue. And not only is it going towards corruption, but it's corruption in the police force. That's where
But I do have an opinion on that.
No. I agree that there need to be an investigation because there's serious allegations regarding corruption. So you don't need to have any standing to voice an opinion as to whether you believe there should be an investigation into this matter. The allegations are very serious. And we're not pointing finger and saying anybody is guilty because, as we mentioned earlier, any criminal matter, it has to be proven that somebody did something before you could say, well, you're guilty. So we're not saying anybody's guilty here, but I'm saying and I'm maintaining that because of the nature of the allegations here, there need to be some serious investigation, especially into the Guyana police force.
So you're agreeing with me that an international investigation is absolutely necessary. And I'm saying also further to that, what is leading me to make that call is because I have no faith and trust in the Guyana police force to do the investigation. And that is why I'm suggesting and opinionating that there ought to be an international impartial investigation surrounding what has took place here. But not only here, there are many other issues that we can point to where the trust in the police force has basically descended. Look at the Henry boys. They're still awaiting justice. Harish Singh is still awaiting justice. You have the Quindon Bacchus matter awaiting justice. And the other one in Golden Grove there, Mark, awaiting justice.
That's Bacchus, and then there's the Boston in Essequibo, and then there's
Boston in Essequibo and Bacchus
also
in Golden Grove.
Thank you so much, Ganesh. Mahipaul, I appreciate the fact that you have taken time out of your Sabbath to be here with us. You have been absent for a while, and every time you come here, you attempt to bully me, but not tonight. I was prepared for you. Not tonight, Ganesh.
Mark, actually, your viewers are thinking. Some of your viewers are thinking you're bullying the member of parliament.
No,
Mark knows.
They know Ganesh. Ganesh went in a swamp the other day and was being interviewed by two members in that swamp, and Ganesh stood his ground. Good job, Ganesh. You know what swamp I'm talking about.
Stand your ground, sir.
Shellon, Mark knows that I am one of his most popular and loved visitor to his program. So
Oh,
I
Father.
expect my following to
Oh,
defend me here.
they
But
will defend you.
Okay, I see.
Ganesh,
So that was
it was
one of
indeed a
your
pleasure.
fans, and not one of
you,
Mark's.
you guys are not going as yet. Let's get your closing remarks, please, first, Miss Washington.
All right, guys, as always, Mark, it's a pleasure being here. I thank all of your listeners, all of your supporters out there who are listening in tonight. And I want to say extra special thank you to all of you who are continuously supporting me in Brooklyn, my office in Brooklyn. Thank you guys so much. I cannot express how much I'm grateful for all the support from my own people. And again, it's a pleasure being here. And as always, I will continue to voice my opinion for a better Guyana, for a one Guyana. I will not be
One
silenced. I
people,
will,
one nation, one destiny, Guyana.
yes,
People look
I
like the
want to
one Guyana
see.
thing.
I want to see the one people, one nation, one destiny. At some point, it must happen. So I will continue to advocate for that for our people who are there, and all of us. We're going to continue to do whatever we can to fight towards having a better Guyana.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so much.
guys,
And
and I love and
what's
appreciate all of you.
for folks who want to get in touch with you, what's your number, please? Your office number?
My office number is 718-877-3100, guys. You saw the commercial earlier, and if you have any need for legal consultation, legal advice, give me a call, 718-877-3100.
That's again 718-877-3100. I thank you all so much. I don't know whether I should give Ganesh his 1 minute for his closing remarks. He has been away from us for a while. He play, as we say on the quarantine, he play Braiga. I'm sure, Miss Washington, you don't know what Braiga means. Are you people from Linden? I don't know what Braiga, but you're
No.
gonna play Braiga. You play Braiga. Ganesh, explain what Braiga means. Braiga, you play Braiga, and your closing remarks, please, sir.
Thank you, Mark. I want to first thank Shellon Washington for sharing the platform with me. I've enjoyed her company, and it is the first time I'm meeting her, virtually, of course. And I want to tell her that when I'm in New York, I will surely stop by to say hello physically, much to the displeasure of Mark, but that doesn't bother me. I want to say to the viewers of this program that it's a pleasure being on Mark Benschop program. I was once a regular person here, and I know that I will regain that status shortly. And I want to assure the people who are listening and those who will listen after this broadcast is posted that they have a duty to themselves and to the country which they belong. And that duty is for them to stand strong with us and stand strong against the People's Progressive Party because of what they are doing to the people of this country. Cost of living is sky high, punishment is at its highest, and we have an elite regime that is acting aloof. And we cannot continue to have our ordinary citizens suffering at the hands of this regime, while a small percentage of the friends, families, and favorites benefit from the tremendous wealth of this nation. Guyana is a wealthy nation. Guyana is a beautiful country. Guyana is a country one will be proud to say they're associated with. But it is a disgraceful administration, a shameful administration, a parasitic administration that we have in office that continues to bleed the resources and not putting it in its rightful place, and that is to advance a better life for the ordinary citizens of this land. Moving our people is a priority. Moving our people from where they are to a higher state of benefit and comfort is a priority of the coalition government. I encourage the viewers and supporters to continue to support the APNU AFC in its bid to regain power, in its bid to take its rightful seat and to get rid of the People's Progressive Party from that borrowed robe they're currently clothed in. And I say to the viewership and to Mark Benschop, thank you for this program. Thank you for continuing to educate our people. Thank you for holding strong and holding steadfast in this fight as we fight to bring a change to our country, the administration of our land, and the betterment of our people. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Mahipaul, thank you so much for what you do there on the ground as well. You and the others who are actually out there doing something. We salute and we respect you guys for that. It's not an easy task, especially standing up against a corrupt and installed regime. It's just not easy. As Buju Banton said, it's not an easy road, and who feels it knows. So kudos to you guys.
Mark,
Sometimes
just remind your viewers that tomorrow there's a rally at Golden Grove that will be held by the AP and UAFC, and we will be campaigning against the high cost of living. We will be campaigning against extrajudicial killing. We will be campaigning against this illegal installed regime, and we will be fighting for a clean voters list.
absolutely. And what time is that?
4:30 in the afternoon.
4:30. Yeah, thank you so much. And we want to end by saying that this installed regime is full of a bunch of jiggery pokery. God bless you guys. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Good night, Shellon. Good night.
Good night, Ganesh.
All right, Honorable MP Ganesh Mahipaul and Attorney at Law Shellon Washington. We want to urge you guys to have a great weekend. Continue to be safe. Continue to pray for your beautiful country, Guyana, regardless of where you are, whether you're under quarantine, whether you are in Linden, Ituni, Kokwani, you're in Lethem, wherever you are, Georgetown, or even on the East Coast or West Coast, wherever you are, just continue to pray for your country. And to our indigenous brothers and sisters, September month, hey, what can we? Almost many of us in that country can hold claim to all ethnic background. In fact, myself, I have a lot of indigenous relatives. My great-grandmother, indigenous, my just a mix-up, a melting cook-up kind of family that we do have. So I'll be celebrating this month with my indigenous aunts and some of the uncles and some other relatives and even my friends and even fellow Guyanese. Happy, they say Amerindian month, but it has since been changed to be politically correct Indigenous Peoples Month. So have a great rest of the evening. God bless you all, and God bless our beautiful country, as corrupt as it is right now under these corrupt SOBs who are in office. But very soon there'll be change. Very, very soon there'll be change, and back in the hands of individuals who are not corrupt. Until when? Monday? God bless you all. And don't forget that rally. Don't forget that rally at Golden Grove tomorrow, starting sometime around 4 o'clock. Go out there with your friends and relatives. Have fun. God bless you. And when I say have fun, I don't really mean fun, because it's a rally to talk about the cost of living and all manner of things happening to people. Until Monday, God bless you. So long.
So, this is attorney Shellon Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Kellyan Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-3600. 6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins firm. Contact them at alistaircollinsfirm.com.